The morning mist hung low over Rosewood Cemetery, casting ethereal shadows across the rows of marble headstones and ancient oak trees. Marcus Wellington, one of the nation's wealthiest real estate moguls, stood at the iron gates, his hands trembling as he clutched a bouquet of white lilies, his late daughter's favorite flowers. It had been 3 years since the accident. 3 years since 22-year-old Emma Wellington's life had been cut short by a drunk driver on a rainy October evening. 3 years of unbearable grief that no amount of money could heal. Marcus visited Emma's grave every Sunday morning without fail, always arriving at dawn when the cemetery was nearly empty. It was his sacred ritual, his only moment of peace in an otherwise chaotic world of boardroom meetings, corporate deals, and endless responsibilities. But this Sunday would be different. As he walked the familiar path toward Emma's grave, situated beneath a magnificent weeping willow near the southern wall, Marcus heard something unexpected, the sound of a child's laughter, clear and bright in the morning stillness. He quickened his pace, his Italian leather shoes crunching on the gravel path. When he rounded the corner, he stopped dead in his tracks. There, kneeling beside Emma's grave, was a man in a janitor's uniform, his weathered hands carefully placing fresh flowers in the stone vase. Beside him stood a little girl, no more than 6 or 7 years old, with curly brown hair and a pink dress that seemed too thin for the cool morning air. "What are you doing here?" Marcus's voice came out harsher than he intended, edged with both confusion and indignation. The janitor, a man in his late 40s with graying hair and kind eyes, looked up, startled. He quickly stood, placing a protective hand on the child's shoulder. "Mr. Wellington," the man said softly, recognition flickering across his weathered face. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. You know who I am?" Marcus took a step closer, his eyes narrowing. "And you still thought it appropriate to bring a child to my daughter's grave?" The little girl pressed closer to the janitor's leg, her wide eyes filled with uncertainty. "My name is David Chen," the janitor said, his voice steady despite the obvious tension. "I work here at the cemetery, and this is my daughter, Lily." He paused, his hand gently stroking the child's hair. "We come here every Sunday to visit your daughter." Marcus felt his anger rising. "Visit my daughter? You didn't even know her." "But I did," David said quietly, his eyes meeting Marcus's with unexpected directness. "Your daughter saved my life, Mr. Wellington, and I've been coming here every week for 3 years to thank her." The words hung in the air between them like a challenge. Marcus felt his certainty wavering, replaced by a growing confusion. "That's impossible," he said, though his voice had lost its edge. "How could you have possibly known Emma?" David took a deep breath, his hand never leaving his daughter's shoulder. 3 years ago, I was at the lowest point of my life. My wife had just died from cancer, leaving me alone with Lily. I'd lost my job. We were about to lose our apartment, and I couldn't see a way forward. I was standing on the Jefferson Street Bridge one night, ready to end it all. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. He knew that bridge. It was less than a mile from where Emma had lived. "Your daughter was walking home that night," David continued, his voice thick with emotion. "She saw me standing there, saw what I was about to do. She spent 2 hours talking to me, convincing me that my daughter needed me, that there were reasons to keep fighting. She gave me her business card, told me to call her the next day, and she would help me find a job. Emma did that," Marcus whispered, his eyes beginning to sting. "She did more than that," David said, a sad smile crossing his face. "When I called her, she was true to her word. She helped me get this job at the cemetery. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work with benefits. She even helped me find affordable childcare for Lily. For 6 months, your daughter was like a guardian angel to us. She'd check in regularly, make sure we were okay, even helped Lily with her reading when she had time." Marcus felt his knees go weak. This was a side of Emma he'd never fully known. His busy schedule had meant he'd missed so much of her daily life. Then one night, David's voice cracked. "She was coming to visit us. She'd promised Lily she'd bring her a birthday present. That's when the accident happened. She died on her way to see my daughter." The flowers fell from Marcus's hands, scattering white lilies across the grass. He staggered slightly, and David instinctively reached out to steady him. "I'm so sorry," David said, tears now streaming down his face. "I've lived with the guilt every day. If she hadn't been coming to see us—" "No," Marcus interrupted, his own tears finally breaking free. "No, don't do that to yourself. Emma was exactly where she chose to be, doing exactly what she loved, helping people. For a long moment, the two men stood in silence, connected by grief and an unexpected revelation. Little Lily, sensing the shift in mood, gently tugged on her father's sleeve. "Daddy, can I show Mr. Wellington the picture?" David nodded, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a worn, laminated photograph. He handed it to Marcus with trembling hands. The photo showed Emma, radiant and smiling, kneeling beside a younger Lily, helping her blow out candles on a small birthday cake. The joy on both their faces was unmistakable, genuine and heartbreaking. Marcus traced his daughter's face with his finger, a sob escaping his lips. "I never saw this. She never told me about you. She was humble like that," David said softly. "She never wanted recognition for the good she did. She just wanted to help." "How many others were there?" Marcus asked, looking up at David. "How many other people did my daughter help that I never knew about?" David shrugged slightly. "I don't know all of them, but over the years working here, I've met at least a dozen people who come to visit her grave, people she helped in various ways. There's a woman she helped escape an abusive relationship, a teenager she mentored who's now in college, a homeless veteran she helped get into a treatment program. Your daughter touched more lives than you might ever know." Marcus felt something shift deep within his chest. For 3 years he'd been consumed by his loss, by what had been taken from him. But standing here, learning about the lives Emma had changed, he began to see his daughter's legacy in a new light. "Why flowers every week?" Marcus asked, gesturing to the fresh bouquet David had placed. "It's the least I can do," David said simply. "She gave me back my life, gave me the strength to be a father to Lily. These flowers, these visits, they're my way of making sure she's never forgotten, that her kindness keeps living on." Little Lily suddenly stepped forward, reaching into her small backpack. She pulled out a drawing, carefully folded, and held it out to Marcus with both hands. "I made this for Miss Emma," she said in a small, sweet voice. "Daddy says she's an angel now watching over us. I wanted her to have a picture of our family so she knows we're okay." Marcus took the drawing with shaking hands. It showed a simple but touching scene, a stick figure of a man and a little girl holding hands, with an angel with golden wings hovering above them, surrounded by flowers. The billionaire, who had commanded boardrooms and negotiated million-dollar deals without flinching, fell to his knees and wept. David knelt beside him, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. They stayed that way for several minutes, two fathers united by loss and love, while Lily stood quietly, her small presence a testament to the life Emma had helped preserve. Finally, Marcus composed himself enough to speak. "Thank you," he said hoarsely. "Thank you for honoring my daughter this way, for remembering her." "Mr. Wellington," David said carefully, "there's something else you should know. Every week when we come here, Lily and I talk to Emma. We tell her about our week, about the good things happening in our lives. We thank her for everything. And I've been putting aside a little money each month, not much, but what I can spare, to start a fund. I want to help other people the way Emma helped us." Marcus looked up sharply. "A fund?" David nodded. "I've saved about $3,000 so far. I know it's not much, but I thought maybe someday there could be a scholarship in Emma's name, or something to help people in crisis. I just wanted her kindness to continue somehow." The irony wasn't lost on Marcus. Here was a janitor, struggling to raise a daughter on a modest income, trying to create a legacy for someone who'd had access to unlimited resources, but had never needed them to make a difference. "David," Marcus said, standing and brushing off his expensive suit pants, "I think we need to talk. Not here, not now, but soon. I have an idea, and I'd like your help with it." Over the following weeks, Marcus Wellington did something he hadn't done in years. He slowed down. He started visiting the cemetery more frequently, often timing his visits to coincide with David and Lily's Sunday morning trips. He listened to David's stories about Emma, learned about the other people whose lives she'd touched, and began to piece together a fuller picture of who his daughter had really been. He also made good on his promise to David. Together, they established the Emma Wellington Foundation, with David serving as one of the board members despite his initial protests. But Marcus insisted, who better to guide a foundation dedicated to helping people in crisis than someone who'd been saved from the brink? The foundation started modestly but grew quickly. Marcus matched every dollar David had saved, then multiplied it 1,000-fold. They created emergency funds for families facing eviction, mental health resources for those in crisis, job training programs, and scholarships for underprivileged students. But the Foundation's most unique program was its Crisis Intervention Initiative, inspired by Emma's impromptu intervention on the Jefferson Street Bridge. They trained volunteers to patrol areas where people might be in distress, equipped with resources and, more importantly, the time and compassion to listen. David became more than just a board member. He became Marcus's friend, a bridge to a world the billionaire had been too isolated to see. Lily, in turn, became like a granddaughter to Marcus, filling a void he hadn't realized had grown so vast. 1 year after their first meeting at the cemetery, Marcus organized a special event. He invited everyone who'd been touched by Emma's kindness, the woman who'd escaped abuse and now ran a shelter for others, the teenager who'd graduated college and become a social worker, the veteran who'd gotten clean and now counseled other veterans, and dozens more. They gathered not in some fancy hotel ballroom but at the cemetery, around Emma's grave, which Marcus had enhanced with a beautiful stone bench where people could sit and reflect. As the sun set, casting golden light through the trees, Marcus stood before the assembled group with David and Lily beside him. 3 years ago, he began, his voice steady despite the emotion he felt. I lost my daughter. I thought that loss was the end of everything good in my life, but I was wrong. Emma's life didn't end that night, it multiplied. Every person she helped went on to help others. Every act of kindness she performed rippled outward, touching lives she never even knew about. He paused, looking down at Lily, who smiled up at him. A janitor and his daughter taught me what I should have learned from my own child, that wealth isn't measured in bank accounts or stock portfolios. It's measured in lives changed, in hope restored, in kindness passed forward. Emma was rich beyond measure, and I was too blind to see it while she was alive. Marcus turned to David. Thank you for showing me my daughter's true legacy. Thank you for honoring her when I was too consumed by grief to remember how she lived instead of just mourning how she died. David stepped forward, his arm around Lily. Your daughter gave me back my life, Mr. Wellington. The least I could do was make sure her light kept shining. It does, Marcus said softly, gesturing to the crowd around them. Look at all these people, all these lives she touched, and through this foundation, she'll touch thousands more. That's immortality, not being remembered but continuing to make a difference long after you're gone. As the gathering dispersed and people shared their stories, Marcus noticed Lily approaching Emma's grave with a fresh bouquet of white lilies. He watched as the little girl carefully arranged the flowers, then pressed her small hand against the marble headstone. Thank you, Miss Emma, she whispered, for saving my daddy, for saving me. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face again, but this time they weren't just tears of grief. They were tears of gratitude, of understanding, of connection to something larger than himself. He'd come to the cemetery that fateful Sunday morning prepared to guard his daughter's memory jealously, to protect his private grief from intrusion. Instead, he'd found something infinitely more valuable, a reminder that love doesn't die, it transforms. Emma's love had transformed into David's survival, into Lily's future, into a foundation that would help countless others. The billionaire had thought he'd caught a janitor trespassing at his daughter's grave. Instead, he'd found a guardian, a friend, and a living testament to everything his daughter had stood for. As the last visitors left and twilight settled over the cemetery, Marcus, David, and Lily sat together on the bench beside Emma's grave. They didn't need to speak. The silence between them was comfortable, filled with shared understanding and quiet remembrance. Same time next Sunday? David asked eventually. Marcus smiled, truly smiled, for the first time in 3 years. Same time next Sunday, and every Sunday after that. Little Lily reached out, taking both men's hands in her small ones. Miss Emma would be happy, she said with the simple wisdom of childhood. She'd be happy we're all friends. Yes, Marcus agreed, squeezing the child's hand gently. Yes, she would. As they walked together toward the cemetery gates, Marcus realized that while he couldn't bring his daughter back, he could honor her by living the way she had lived, with compassion, generosity, and an open heart. A janitor and his daughter had taught a billionaire what truly mattered, and in doing so, they'd given him back something he thought he'd lost forever: purpose, connection, and hope. The story of what happened at Emma Wellington's grave that misty Sunday morning spread throughout the community, inspiring others to perform random acts of kindness, to notice those in need, to understand that everyone has the power to change lives, regardless of their wealth or status. And every Sunday morning, without fail, three figures could be seen at Rosewood Cemetery: a billionaire, a janitor, and a little girl, united by love, loss, and the enduring legacy of a young woman who'd understood that the greatest wealth of all is the positive impact we have on others' lives.